What's up, guys? We're back with another Marvel Legends review, jumping into the second Retro Spider-Man wave with the first figure that I've gotten my hands on, our new Ben Reilly Spider-Man that's on the fancy new Spider-Man body that we've all been waiting to get more figures on. So we've got him here in the big window, of course, vintage card style packaging, so very much in line with old Toy Biz stuff. You've got the Spider-Man logo up top. We've got some, sort of cartoony artwork of Ben Reilly there on the side, and then the back of the box gives you that sort of vintage Toy Biz look of how to interchange some parts, another shot of Ben, and then a bio with some cross-sell. So let's do it. Let's pull him out and take a look. And here we go, out of the package, our Ben Reilly Spider-Man from the Retro Wave. Again, one of the new instances of getting this Spider-Man body that we saw. I don't know, it feels like an eternity ago that we got that first Retro Wave with that brand new Spider-Man that started to change the game. So this guy is definitely still on a very unique articulation scheme for the line, and messing around with this guy has kind of made me realize exactly how much I do still love that figure. I don't mess with that Spider-Man all that often, so it was kind of out of sight, out of mind, but it's still a really, really good instance of Hasbro stepping up their game to make a more agile Spider-Man. And it's kind of one of those reasons why I don't feel the need to get any import stuff. That's me, but I still think this thing is just kind of leaps and bounds above a lot of other figures from Hasbro. So let's see what he can do, see how he moves around. We've got our head that can look all the way up because, again, there is a notch cut in the back of the neck, which frankly I want to see more of. I would love to see that more because, the range is just exceptional all the way up. Really good down. Tilt side to side, full rotation, of course. Arms out at the shoulders. Then, of course, they rotate. We do have our butterfly joint, goes forward and backward really far. Bicep swivel, double jointed elbows, not pinless, which is probably the one big flaw with this figure now until we get some pinless arms on this body. You've got hinges and rotation at your wrist. And then where things get changed up as far as legends go, it has a different style of articulation scheme for the torso. So we've got a diaphragm swivel, so backwards, forwards, tilt side to side, and then rotation. This is your rotation point, is right here. But really, really, really good range. And then it has an ab crunch. So there's no waist twist on this guy, which is, of course, different from the norm. But he can go forward, so far forward. It's great. Tremendous range. Legs go out this far. It's not full splits, but it's pretty good. And if you rotate this joint, enough, you can make it work to where he'll get into some really good low crouching poses. Kick forward. Kick backward slightly. You do have your thigh twist there. We've got double jointed knees. You've got a shin swivel boot cut. It's kind of ugly, but that's pretty normal for this particular kind of figure where it's not actually a boot. And then you've got a really, really good rocker and hinges down at those ankles. Nothing gets in the way on this guy. Very, very easy to pose, very agile, and just, all honesty, tremendous range of movement. Makes me want, unequivocally makes me want to see any figure they can throw on this body. I want them on there. Anybody that needs to be this agile and this size, obviously, I want to see more. I've wanted to see more for a long time, but now that I've got a new one again to kind of reinvigorate my interest, I definitely want to see more. Aesthetically, it's more of the same too, because this isn't that far removed from a Spider-Man suit. Ben Reilly has a unique suit. It is a little bit different, but for the most part, it's obvious that this is a Spider-Man. Maybe you don't know which Spider-Man it is, or which version of Peter Parker, which person we're talking about in some instances, depending on your familiarity level. But this is still quite obviously a Spider-Man, and I still really like this mixture of parts. It's not 100% new. Well, obviously it's not because we've already gotten a figure like this, but even then it still wasn't 100% new. But it's all about the torso, really, and this slightly beefed up body. Like it's not as small as the Pizza Spidey body, which I'm happy with because in many instances I think it's too small in some instances. But it's also not overly big either. So I do really like this. The paint work on all the webbing and the spider is incredibly clean. Like I don't really have anything here that jumps out at me. Even down here on the legs, which, this is all paint down here because of the fact that it's molded blue. So this is all paint. The paint on the fingers is really nice, but all of this is very clean. Like I don't really have anything that I can see that jumps out at me, that screams, someone hit it wrong with the airbrush or the brush or whatever technique was used on this one. I think it looks really nice. Everything's very crisp, very sharp edges, very sharp lines, and everything as far as colors go is pretty consistent too. So I'm not seeing anything weird where, the blue on top is different from the blue on the bottom, and the reds are pretty close. The paint down here is definitely not the same as the molded red plastic up top, but it's pretty close. I mean, it's always going to be a little different because of the finish, but I still think the colors are close, and they're far enough away from each other that I don't think it, kind of messes with the eye too much. But really, it's just about the overall combination of parts, this new torso, how it just kind of builds the figure, so to speak, to make it look a little bit more bulky than normal for a Spider-Man figure that we're used to seeing, but also still very recognizable as a Spider-Man, while also, again, being incredibly agile. He's got his silver bands over here, so that's a little bit of a difference. It kind of breaks up the suit a little bit. Head sculpt on this guy, I think, is tremendous. It's the same head sculpt that we saw in the retro Spidey. It's nothing different there, but it looks great. Web lines are also really clean. Eyes are not super huge, but not super small. So very much happy with that. Colors, again, clean and crisp, very bright, very vibrant. And I mean, yeah, it's a great body, and it translates really well into a Spider-Man. In pretty much any Spider-Man I would take on this body. But the colors, the paints, all of it's applied really well, very clean. Really no issues to speak of when it comes to this guy. I think everything looks pretty much tip-top when it comes to overall presentation here. He's a very good-looking Spider-Man, even if he is not necessarily the Spider-Man. And then as far as some size comparisons go, I'm not going to do a whole lot because it's Marvel Legends. So we've got our Venom from the PulseCon, so the Omega Red Buck Venom, and then we've got our Ben Reilly Spider-Man, and we've got our original retro Spider-Man right here. So you can see that these two are, they're the same figure. There's nothing really different about them except for color palettes, which is perfectly fine. I'm okay with that. But then you can see how well they stack up next to this Venom, which of course is very beefy. I think they scale really nicely together when it comes to putting this version of Spider-Man next to any Venom on whatever ends up being on this body. Hopefully we'll get a regular one down the road. But I think that works really nicely. Now let's move this guy aside and let's put a different legend in. So here's a Bucky Cap figure. Here he is with the AOA Cyclops. And then let's move this guy aside and just a different, larger scale figure. So here they are with a Mythic Legion, so a 7-inch scale figure. You can see how they scale with Tibius there. So I'm not going to go into much detail on this one. We'll get you a standard Marvel Legends figure that's not the retro Spidey body, and then a larger scale non-Marvel Legends figure, just to see how they scale. I think the bigger comparison is the fact that he looks really good with this Venom. That really puts him into perspective, especially because a lot of folks are probably going to do something like that. But I think this body is sized really well. It's a great combination of parts again, and it's going to fit in pretty much anywhere when it comes to needing a Spider-Man. Now, as far as accessories goes, not really a lot here, but I'm not saying that in a negative sense, because for the most part, when it comes to a Spider-Man figure, I really just need hands, and this guy has the hands that I want. So we've got fists on him in the box. Well, actually, he doesn't have fists on him in the box. Let me take that back. I swapped him out. So he has fists on him now. And then we've got a set of thwipping hands. I think these are what he comes with in the box. Thwipping hands and wall crawling hands, or style pose hands, or holding hands. You can put a piece of pizza in there if you need to, right? So we've got 6 different hands, 3 different sets. So you've got enough. I think that's pretty much the base level of what I want to see with a Spider-Man. The only real thing that I would love Hasbro to try to figure out how to do is to make some sort of bendy wire or whatever style of webbing. I would love to see that included with this stuff. I don't know if it's ever going to happen, but at the same time, it's kind of the next step. It's the one thing that I'd like to see, but at what I truly want, what I truly need is in this box. He's got style pose hands, he's got thwipping hands, he's got fist hands. I can put him in pretty much any scene, and there's no issue, no muss, no fuss, no trying to find hands from a different figure. So yeah, overall, really happy with this guy. Frankly, I was expecting to be, but really happy with this guy. He looks great, moves really well, has solid accessories. The only real thing that I would love to see changed is not necessarily a problem with this particular figure, but just something with this body. I'd like to see those arms and legs swapped out at some point for something pinless, because that's the direction everything's going, and this guy does still have mismatched color pins on the legs, which is a bit of an eyesore. It's not a huge thing, and it doesn't really hinder articulation in any way for him to be this way in terms of construction, but it would look nicer. So really, that's probably my only gripe with this guy, is that despite the fact that we're going pinless, this guy still isn't. Otherwise, very, very happy with it, and a great example of why this body is just so much fun. It moves incredibly well, and it looks great too. So that's going to do it for this look at the Marvel Legends Retro Wave Ben Reilly Spider-Man. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.